Back like we never left. B.D.A. And today we're here to talk about One Piece chapter 937. Now I know a lot of people were upset with how I viewed the chapter initially, and I mean I get it. As far as people and their One Piece, it's like the gospel to them. So for them, you know, people are upset. It's it's fine. It's whatever. We'll move on. Anyway, One Piece chapter 937. I think, well, it was a lot that went on. I know the main thing people want to talk about is Zoro, and people are loving the fact that Zoro's going crazy right now. That's not the most interesting thing to me this chapter. And I understand it. You know, when Zoro goes off, Zoro hasn't done anything meaningful in a while when we talk about actual fights. So people are excited. Zoro is a fan favorite. So when he does something, people get excited. For me, as far as Zoro doing something meaningful, this did not move me at all. It was okay. It was fine. Let me not say it didn't move me at all. It was okay. But as far as like what I know Zoro's potential to be, it was fine. This is what I expect. If I went into the fight, right, and we could the script and say what Zoro's going to do in a fight, you would say, okay, if it's 2v1, maybe he gets stabbed, but after Zoro gets serious, Onigiri or Lions, something and one shot, right? That's just the choreography for Zoro fights recently. That's just how they have been. So for me, when this happened, it was like, okay, cool, but anticlimactic. So for people don't really like that because a lot of people were excited. A lot of people based off of that was giving this chapter a 10 out of 10. This chapter is not a 10 out of 10. If anything, this chapter gave us a lot of information as far as like what's going to happen. So for me, this chapter is still setting shit up. I'm jumping forward with the Zoro stuff, but I wanted to get that out the way. So let's talk about Big Mom and what's going on with her. So Big Mom, Oda is going out of his way to stress this food thing, right? And to say that Big Mom is hungry and she's going to want to eat Shiruka. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with going out of the way to say exactly what Big Mom's intentions are. A bit forced, but with Big Mom, we know she likes food already. So for this, it's not surprising. We had been talking about this for some weeks now. So next, Oda goes out of his way to show that Queen and Big Mom, they like the exact same thing. It's hinting that Big Mom is going to go to Udon and Queen is going to have the food she wants, and Big Mom is going to have to fight Queen for the food she wants. Essentially, Big Mom is going to end up saving Luffy. Kind of crazy when you think about it, especially where we came from in Whole Cake Island, but that's where it's leading up to. And I'm kind of like, all right, whatever. We're here now. Let's go. So Big Mom has somewhat been reduced to, not reduced to. At this point, she's used as something to move the plot forward. Because if Big Mom was on the other end and she was also against the Straw Hats, it would seem a bit overwhelming for two Yonko to be against the Straw Hats right now with the limited forces that they have. They even mentioned that it's going to be almost impossible to get the 5,000 forces that they need. I don't think it's going to be almost impossible, but that's what they're saying right now. So for Big Mom, she's being used to kind of move the plot forward a bit while not interfering too much with the Straw Hats in their plan. Fair enough. Okay, so next with Queen and Luffy and everything that's going on with them. It's okay. It's okay, but it's not really indicative of what we know about Queen. Now, someone even pointed out, do you think Queen is still serious? Because I missed the last two chapters, obviously, so I didn't get to talk about them. And Queen, we saw Queen dancing, and even Queen, when they were reporting back to Queen, giving Queen like the priority list and the ranking of such. You saw Queen's reactions to it. So Queen is somewhat of a character. In One Piece characters, they're somewhat of characters, right? That's how they are. They have quirks, they're quirky. Queen, he's no different. And Queen, when we first got introduced to him, King, when Jack was kind of apologizing to those two, Queen seemed like the more savage of the three. Where Queen was like, yo, Let's go. We should be executing. We should be torturing. Let's do it. That's what Queen was saying, right? And we were like, oh, this is the type of person Queen is. What's going on with Luffy right now? I'm not saying it's bad. It's not bad. But I feel like Queen is somewhat underestimating Luffy. Which that's normally the case for characters like this. But I think for someone like Luffy and the level that he's attained, respect should be given. Of course, the collar is on him, but you took off his sea stone cuffs. So at this point, Luffy was like, oh shit, I'm free now. Queen cannot beat Luffy. Point blank, period. I'm not sure what powers Queen has, but Queen is the second commander. At this point, Luffy is borderline first commander level, if not there already. So, Queen, I'm sorry. You're not beating Luffy. And as far as portrayal and first commanders and how they've been shown, they've been more impressive than any other commander, which would be the case because they're the right hands. So, for that, it's just Queen is giving Luffy too many chances. And Luffy's obviously going to take advantage of him. Now, as far as what Luffy said during this whole thing, because right now Luffy is fighting everybody Queen is throwing at him, right? And obviously they stand no chance. The first group that got thrown at him conquers Haki. And now Luffy is practicing on these people. Practicing. All right, so Luffy states that he still cannot get it right. And Luffy goes back to what Rayleigh did when we first saw Rayleigh before 3D2I. He used a special Haki attack on the elephant. On this elephant, what he used, we've always talked about it. And we've never seen it again since Rayleigh, right? The attack in which it looked like he sent out a fire blast. And Sentomaru used something similar. And the Admirals used something similar when Whitebeard was trying to use his earthquake to attack the platform. They did that. But Raylaigh's was a bit more forceful, right? It had the animation. It was blue. It was like, whoa, what the hell is Rayleigh doing? Luffy's trying to do that now. And he still cannot do it. And I think the misconception now is that because of this confirms that Rayleigh is stronger than every right hand currently. And I don't think so. Again, I talk about this all the time, my perception of Rayleigh and how I scale Rayleigh. And how I scale certain characters people don't agree with just because of some characters I downplay, some characters I give a bit of an edge. And for Rayleigh and age, I don't give him the benefit of the doubt just because age is a factor. Several times in One Piece it's mentioned that age plays a factor. Age plays a role as far as like effectiveness, and it's just with Rayleigh. Let's talk about right now, okay? And Rayleigh having advanced arm and Haki. And people say, oh, this is an indication that Luffy hasn't surpassed Rayleigh as a fighter. And Luffy has never been the technical by the book fighter. That's not his game. So I don't think Luffy's lacking power wise fighting someone like Rayleigh. Obviously not stamina wise either. Obviously not speed wise either. I think the main difference between Rayleigh and Luffy is control. I think even Luffy said it. His was much lighter. I think for Rayleigh, because he said envision it as a suit of armor, an outside armor. That's what you should look at it as. So for Rayleigh, I think Luffy has to learn to control it better. I don't think he lacks in power, stamina, speed to Rayleigh at all currently. I think right now, Rayleigh has more experience and control with Haki. So for Luffy, he has to learn to use that control because he said it's light. It was a lot lighter. So for him, learning that form and that technique is what he has to do. I don't think he has to get stronger to learn it. I think it's just a technique thing right now for him. So I think going through the gauntlet that he has in the New World, if you want to call it that, with Hody Jones, Doflamingo, Katakuri, it has prepared him to probably take that next step as far as Haki is concerned. Of course, Rayleigh left him early. So we're not sure if when he would have been ready to learn this, but it seems it's a technique thing and not necessarily a strength thing. Or that's how I'm looking at it. So for me, I'm not saying Rayleigh definitely isn't weak in my opinion, but I think if it went to a battle to the death, I think Luffy's beating him. Currently, at this point. That's just how I look at Luffy, right? So that technique is something that I can't wait for Luffy to learn. And if this is an obvious indication that Luffy's gonna learn this arc, this advanced haki, right? And that's why I didn't like the flashbacks and the callback, whatever you want to call it, to Rayleigh and what he said, because it somewhat spoils what's gonna happen. You know, okay, now Luffy's gonna be fighting somebody. He's gonna unlock it. He's gonna use it. Maybe not as effectively, but he's gonna use it. And that's why I don't like certain situations like this, because it spoils it. Just let it play out. Don't give me anything what Rayleigh said. Let it play out. Let him do it. Give me a glimpse of it. Then it's like, okay, now you call back to what Rayleigh said. Don't tell me what Rayleigh said, and then Luffy does it. Then you're going to go back to what Rayleigh said. Because I'm sure, I guarantee you, that Rayleigh gave him more information than just outside armor. I'm sure as they went through, Luffy probably asked him, hey, Rayleigh, about that thing you did, how do you do it? Then I think he's going to probably give him some more information like, oh, we have to envision this, X, this, that, and the third, right? So that's the only thing with the flashbacks. Like, I don't know, people think I hate characters that I get tired of seeing, like Rayleigh. Rayleigh's one of my favorite characters. But it's just, I feel like it's just spoiling when they go back to him and tell us what he's trying to teach Luffy, because obviously he's going to learn it then, right? So that's my only issue with that. It's just kind of annoying. Now, I'll talk about Rayleigh and Luffy and all that stuff more in a different video, because it's a lot more I want to touch on as far as like the levels of armament, because we saw a bit of it with Katakuri. Where Katakuri had a more powerful armament than Luffy, but I think with Rayleigh's it's just more so technique, and it being just a way to. We always talked about this, right? We talked about this a lot as far as like, say you're fighting someone like Magellan. How can you keep Magellan from poisoning you? And this haki seems like it's a way for things like that to not affect you at all, because it's like an invisible armor. Right? So it's not penetrating your arm. It's not like hardening, right? Where you're just making your fist harden. It's like an invisible armor where if someone attacks you with that, it's like it doesn't penetrate that armor. I know people talk about this with Shanks, where like when Akainu attacked Shanks, why did nothing of him get burned? He blocked an entire magma thing. It was like Shanks would have this level of armament as well. So I'm super interested in that. The next thing, or I guess this is the final part of the chapter, is Zoro, Kamazo, and Gyokiri, whatever the fuck his name is. The thing with all the weapons, right? I would go back and check it, but he was annoying me this chapter. He was annoying as shit. Super annoying. So he's mad at Zoro because, of course, Zoro had Shishio. And Zoro got Shishio from Ryuma. And for him, for those people in Wano, Ryuma is a god. He's the sword god. And they went out of their way to kind of say Ryuma is a god, right? And there's no way someone like you would have been able to meet him, beat him, even stand in his shoes, his footsteps. That you're nothing to Ryuma, right? I think the most interesting thing that this guy said was talked about the black blade, and that how Shishio is a black blade. And we always saw Mihawk's sword, and we're like, whoa, is it permanently imbued with haki? Is it permanently a black blade? But it's a black blade. So a lot of theories have been flown around as far as like how do you get a black blade and the things that surround it. For me, it was just, all right, a black blade is just a blade that's been with you. It's gone through blood. It's gone through experiences. And this blade has leveled up to the point that it is permanently black because it now has a will. And for me, with Mihawk and his sword, he even mentioned that my sword knows no restraint, right? So I think the black blades have developed a will, and they have somewhat a soul in some way. We saw in Mihawk, with Zoro's sword, it already has a will. And it's the same as, like, with the Mary and the Sunny and all those, and the Klabata Man and all that shit. I think it's some way the experiences has gone through. Of course, using Haki as well. I don't think it's just necessarily using Haki enough on the blade has made the blade permanently black. I don't think it's that cut and dry. But I think it has more so to do with the Haki experiences and the will you've placed into your blade that has upgraded and transformed your blade. He even said that he overestimated Zoro because he expected Zoro to know about this. But Zoro even said, that's something I've always been curious about. And I'm surprised that Mihawk then mentioned this to Zoro. I guess he felt like Zoro wasn't ready as yet to know exactly what a permanent black blade was. He talked about Zoro and the black blade, making your blade black because, if you get a nick on your blade, that's basically embarrassing for a swordsman. So, I want to talk more about black blades, but let's talk about Zoro and his fight, right? And the fight was okay. I didn't mind the fight. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, the fight was fine. I just felt like a lot of people used that fight because we haven't seen Zoro active in a long time. I'm trying to think of the most meaningful thing Zoro has done before this, right? Because before this, it was what? Pika? And that was okay, right? That was fine. I think as far as moments for me and Zoro post time skip, I enjoyed him cutting the ship in Sabaody more than this. I enjoyed him cutting Monet more than this. I enjoyed the Pika cut more than this, right? Because Pika was talking shit. But Kamazo, it wasn't that much emotional buildup because we don't know much about him. We know he's someone that's wanted because even when they talked about Kamazo, they said, oh, he's a manslayer, he's wanted, but somehow he hasn't been apprehended. And Kumurasaki here goes out of her way to say that, no, I know who you really are. You're just someone that Orochi uses. You're really an employee of Orochi for him to do his bad shit. So when Orochi wants someone murdered or taken out, which is very damn smart, because every government has someone like that, has people like that are somewhat mercenaries that aren't really attached to the government. So anything they do, it's on them, but it's really for the government. So for Orochi to have this, he's getting more and more impressive as I think about him. As I learn more about Orochi, I'm like, this guy is pretty smart. And for me, I know I've talked about before as far as Orochi and his him being just so paranoid with everything that happened in the past. He covers his bases. So to have someone like Kamazo, man, every government should have someone like that. Someone that's somewhat rogue, that's doing things that you would view as independent, but they're doing it for the sake of the village. Main person that comes to mind is Itachi, but that was like an extreme case. But having I think Sasuke now, even in Boruto, he's rogue going around doing shit. But let's not even talk about that. Back to One Piece. Kumurasaki, she's not dead. Right? And a lot of people are saying Kumurasaki is Kuina now. How that would work, I didn't even want to get into the intricacies of like how the timeline would work with Kuina and her being Hiyori. So Kuina and Hiyori are the same person, but I don't want to get into that, right? But that's what people are rolling with now. And for me, I don't care as long as Kuina's alive. Because for Kuina and her being dead, I felt like that was a freaking travesty. So for her, if she is Kuina, because people said the fight was just an introduction to her, that would be great. Now, Kumurasaki and her knowing about Kamazo had to have had some inside information somewhere. So that goes back to Kirishiro, and more than likely Kirishiro told her about everything. Or Kumurasaki could just be that person that's always listening, right? Because she was always around Orochi. So more than likely she overheard everything that was going on with them. And she's like, oh, so Kumurasaki is really important here. She's an important figure. So Kirishiro, again, not really sure where he's going and what he really wants. Because it shows, again, this guy is just all over the place, right? So, again, I want to know more about Kirishiro. So Kumurasaki, not dead. Ladris is going to be mad as hell because Kumurasaki's not dead, as we figured. And what role she plays going forward, obviously she's going to be the Straw Hats because she's with Zoro now. And we have Otoko. I talked about this, right? Where why would they drop her off without knowing if she's safe, right? The Straw Hats. But I think for them, they knew that they would somehow be followed or cornered eventually. So for them, they were dropping her off so that she's not in trouble when they're in trouble. But just dropping her off without knowing if Orochi would go after her or not, felt like it was a bit irresponsible, right? A bit irresponsible. So it played out the way I expected it to. Of course, Orochi was going to send someone after her. Just like with Otama when they sent her along with Speed, right? And then lo and behold, Speed gets taken out and Otama gets captured. It's just, we see these things coming. But anyway, Zoro's fight with Kamazo, I felt like it was a typical fight. It just played out the way I expected it to play out. Zoro, every time in situations like these, he's going to be impressive, right? Because Zoro is a warrior at the end of the day. That's his main function, to fight. So in these situations, he shines. And the thing is, I don't want to even compare Zoro to anyone right now, because this is his moment. For him and how he overcame Fuckboy back there trying to attack him from the back, and then Kamazo, that's what Zoro does, right? That's what he does. So using the scythe, because I didn't even picture this, I picked this up earlier. In reactions, you missed shit. Use the scythe, couldn't pull it out. Use that as three-sword style, overcomes Kamazo. It's a wrap, right? It's a wrap. Again, typical fight. Not amazing, not trash, okay. Okay. And overall for this chapter and what we got from it, I think it was great. I think it was a very good chapter. So when I first read it, my inclination was like maybe a 7.5. And after rereading it a few times, I think it was definitely an 8, right? So the thing is with Zoro, the parallels there as far as like Ryuma, and this is something I want to talk about, right? With Zoro and people that, they say Zoro is a parallel to Ryuma, right? That's his parallel because he's a sword god. Then they say, oh, he's a parallel to Mihawk because Mihawk is going to be the greatest swordsman. Or he's a parallel to Rayleigh because he's going to be the right hand of the Pirate King. I feel like every time with Zoro, it's just so many different things people want him to be. It's just like, okay, what basket do you put Zoro in? Is he all three? Is he parallel to Ryuma, Mihawk, and Rayleigh? Or is he parallel to Mihawk? Or is he just pulling from all three? How do you guys view it? I feel like Ryuma, I don't think it's necessarily a parallel, because I don't think he's going to be viewed the same way as Ryuma, but I think there's going to be takeaways there. I don't think he's a parallel to Ryuma. As far as, I think the parallel there is probably Mihawk. I think even a parallel to Rayleigh, I see it, right? As far as like the right hand of the Pirate King, all that. But I feel like he's going to be fundamentally different from Rayleigh. But we have to learn more about Rayleigh before we say that. But it's just like, I feel like there's just so many parallels to Zoro, we're not really sure what direction to go. We just pull the best things from each person and say, hey, he's a parallel to all three, right? So we just got to find out more about that before we jump to these conclusions. But I think Rayleigh's a fair parallel. Mihawk, only thing is getting the world's greatest swordsman title. That's it. As far as personality, they don't even seem like the same personality. Mihawk is different, right? Mihawk seems to be different, just a different breed, right? But anyway, oh, another thing someone mentioned, I forgot who said this, but Luffy and the Arm in Hockey, they say Hyogoro, the former Yakuza boss, he's going to be the one to teach Luffy the advanced arm and hockey technique, which would be interesting. I would love that, actually. I would really love that. So, good chapter. Like I said, 8 out of 10. But yeah, let me know your thoughts below. Let me know how you feel about the chapter. Do you still feel the same way as you read it? Is Zoro a god? All that shit, leave it below. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't for more content like this. Thank you guys so much for your support. Shout out to all my patrons. Ongo Gabogian came at me, said, yo, we haven't gotten shout out in like 14 months. I said, God damn, it's been that long. Shout out to my patrons. You guys support me, and I appreciate all the support. So many projects I had lined up. Because I went away, I didn't get to finish a few of them. So thank you for your support. If you want to become a patron, check out the link in the description box down below. Again, like the video, subscribe for more content like this. Stream later today or tomorrow. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace.